welcome to another episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, February 19th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. We've got a lot to get into today on the podcast, coming off of a huge sports weekend, a lot going on. You had the Stadium Series out at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. You had the NBA All-Star Game at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. You had the three-point contest, the dunk contest, of course, the All-Star Game last night. So all the All-Star Game festivities. And in this morning, you had breaking news from the Brooklyn Nets as they move on and fire head coach Jacque Vaughn. Will name an interim head coach later this week coming out of the All-Star Game. Their first game back will be Thursday. So I will say this, for the first weekend without football, because usually the first couple weekends without football are really rough until spring training and that stuff begins. And after a while, spring training sometimes gets old and you're like, get me to the regular season already. And I think all of us Yankee fans, all of us baseball fans are at that point where it's just like, get us to the regular season. You saw Juan Soto walking into spring training today. You were saying to yourself, get us to the regular season, get him in pinstripes. You saw Judge walking in. Stanton looks extremely thin, extremely lean. You're hearing reports that the Yankees have made another contract offer right to Blake Snell for Mark Feinsand. Will they get a deal done with him? Giants, Angels, other teams that are involved, but the Yankees are the team that's actually given him a deal. We'll see if he takes it. So a lot going on here over the last couple of days. But for the first weekend without football, usually the first couple weekends are a little depressing, a little sad because, you know, even though you've got hockey and all that great stuff on, usually that stuff's on later in the day. During the day, your Sunday's usually full of football. That wasn't the case. This weekend, that was great. You had two amazing games at MetLife Stadium. Hockey's the talk of the town right now. It's great. It was a great weekend for hockey, great weekend for the NHL, great weekend for the New Jersey, New York metropolitan area with all four teams getting in action outdoors. And, of course, yesterday the comeback win from the New York Rangers was an instant classic, one of the best games, one of the biggest, craziest games, craziest comebacks I've ever seen from this Ranger team. There's definitely been some crazy games over the years. Given that this was outdoors, given it was against the Islanders, in the atmosphere, the comeback, all that great stuff, it was an instant classic. It was something that you'll never forget for many, many years to come. Whenever the next Stadium Series is, we'll be talking about this all the way up until that point. So a lot to get into today on the podcast. We'll start with the Stadium Series and discuss all of that good stuff, all of the great stuff coming out of it, the total attendance, the Rangers game yesterday. We'll also touch upon the Devils and the Flyers game, but of course the Ranger game was the big one as they come away with a huge win. We'll also get into the Nets. Breaking news from Adrian Wojnarowski. The new Brooklyn Nets have moved on from head coach Jacque Vaughn, firing him the morning after the NBA All-Star Game. They will now search for an interim coach after a very solid year last year for Jacque Vaughn, taking that team from what was an absolute disaster with the whole Kevin Durant situation, the whole Kyrie Irving, blowing it up, bringing in young pieces. He actually got a couple Coach of the Year votes. Wasn't first place votes, but he got a couple votes to be Coach of the Year. He also won Eastern Conference Coach of the Month in December last year. Did a lot of good things, but this year was a complete unmitigated disaster. This reminds you of how far away the Brooklyn Nets really are of actually building a solid core foundation and getting to the top of the mountain without trying to pay and bring in superstars like they've tried to do twice over the last decade with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and, of course, the failed Big Three. So more repercussions from the failed Big Three here as Jacque Vaughn's out in Brooklyn. Disaster season. We'll discuss that a little later on. We'll also get you ready for the day in sports today on this President's Day. You've got hockey all throughout the day, so you got that going on. So look forward to that. But, NBA still on the All-Star break, so we've got to wait a couple days for basketball. Of course, a good weekend of college basketball as well behind us. But a lot going on. It was a good first weekend, like I said, without football. Very entertaining first weekend without football. Usually that's not always the case, but definitely was. Genius by the NFL to put this right after the Super Bowl weekend because, fans are going to be starving, especially in the metropolitan area, right? We haven't seen much exciting things recently, especially with the football teams, to put two games at MetLife. Not a lot of winning goes down in that building. in MetLife, but you saw two great games over the weekend. So we'll start with that. The Stadium Series was awesome. We'll get to the Ranger game. We'll get to the Devils game as well. Of course, the Ranger game's the main story because of the 6-5 comeback win. They fall down 4-1 early on. They come back, cut the lead to 4-3 going into the third period. And in the power play goal by the Islanders, Ryan Lindgren gets hurt. Unlucky bounce off of Brazinski's stick to tip in 5-3. And for a while there, it seemed like things were really rough. And, of course, you get the Kreider goal. Then you get the Mika goal. Lavalette pulls the goalie, which was an excellent move by him. Really out-coaching Patrick Waugh in that situation. You pick up the win 6-5. And then you go into overtime. Artemi Panarin, the bread man, with a big-time goal, of course, took a review. But I think that even made the crowd even more electric once the ref officially called on the ice that it was a good goal and all that great stuff. We'll discuss it, really take a deep dive into it and all the ins and out of that game yesterday. But like I mentioned, what a weekend it was for the metropolitan area, for the Rangers fans, for the Devils fans especially, for those two fan bases. To come away with wins, the Devils in their own stomping grounds, of course, playing at, the Izod Center, Continental Airlines Arena, playing in the Meadowlands all those years, across from MetLife in the same parking lot, then moving, of course, to Prudential Center. For Devils fans, it brought back that old nostalgia-type feel of tailgating before the game, going to the Meadowlands, watching a good game, two metropolitan opponents between the Flyers and the Devils with a lot of playoff stuff on the line. Big 2 points there for New Jersey. So, yeah, that perspective for them. And then, of course, for the Rangers. It was the first time the Rangers and Islanders have played each other in a calendar year. They did not play each other at all in 2023, which is crazy. That is bad scheduling by the NHL. But they play each other yesterday. You get Matt Rempe with the fight. You get a good rivalry. You get a good, intense game. And, of course, you get the crazy, crazy comeback win from the New York Rangers. So all fans that were involved, whether you're a Ranger, Islander, Devils, Flyers fan, whether you're disappointed or excited like the Devils and Rangers fans, this was a great weekend of hockey. And I think this was a big weekend for hockey as well, especially in this area. It was the main story for 2 days, and you saw two games that did not disappoint. Now, I know that the Devils and Flyers game was a blowout. It was 6-3. I get that, but the energy inside of that building, like I said, the nostalgia for Devils fans. There was a lot of storylines, a lot of headlines, a lot of good memories, a lot of good things to take from that game, just from a Devils perspective. Not too much to play on the ice because it was a blowout and the Flyers didn't show up. You knew Nico Hischier, once he got that breakaway goal, you had a feeling the game was over from there. They put their foot on the gas and did not let off. Nico Dawes played very well. But just from that, it was great. It was great to see that outdoors. And 79,690 people showed up to the Ranger game yesterday. You had 70,328 people go to the Devils game. In total, you had over 150,000 people enter through the gates of MetLife Stadium. To be exact, it was 150,018 people over 2 days, less than a 24-hour span from the two games. Devils Flyers was at 8 o'clock. Rangers was at 3:47. They had to move it back a little bit because of the sun glare. Less than 24 hours, you had 150,000 people inside that stadium to watch two great hockey games. And some got about 10, 15, some got 10 seconds full of free hockey because Panarin scored 10 seconds into the 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime period. So it was an awesome weekend from that perspective. And I think this has got to be a message to the NFL that they got to continue to do this. I really like the whole two-game slate. I really like the playing two games. Usually it's just two. The Winter Classic, 2 games from the Stadium Series. Usually it's just 2 games total. You have the Winter Classic usually in January, and then, of course, you'll have the Stadium Series now in February. That's always been the case. But I really like, too, going back to, when the Rangers played the Islanders and the Devils at Yankee Stadium, where they had 2 games. I believe the one game was on a Saturday, Rangers-Devils, and the other game was on a Tuesday. It was Rangers-Islanders at night at Yankee Stadium. And those 2 games were awesome. They were a lot of fun. It gave you 2 great opportunities to watch 2 exciting outdoor hockey games. Instead of just one big day, one big event, stretch it across 2 days. I really like this idea. Especially, I would like to see more of this, especially in an area like New York where you have 4 teams within really 2 hours of each other, really within 2 hours of MetLife. You have 4 teams in the area, 2 in New York, 1 in Jersey, 1 in Philly, in the metropolitan area, all come together for those 2 big days back-to-back. That's awesome. Now, you can't quite do that back-to-back in other areas because they don't have the luxury of having 4 different teams. But, next year you hear it's probably going to be, I believe it's the Blue Jackets and the Blues at the Shoe at, Ohio State, right? Blue Jackets play that game on a Saturday and play another game on a Tuesday. It's great for hockey. More fans, more excitement, 2 games. It's awesome. And I would love to see, and I know this is not going to happen, but I would love to see every year there would be teams. Like, I would love to see this every single season. You have Rangers, Rangers play outdoors, or have select cities that every year you just play outdoors. Continue to expand the outdoor hockey. It's so much fun. It's so exciting, especially if you're in attendance, seeing the game live, having the experience. And when you get games like this, they're memories that are going to be forever. And they're great for ratings, great for hockey. Hockey was the main story this weekend. Out of all the sports, hockey was the main story. I think hockey was more of a story than the NBA. And that's exactly what you want if you're Gary Bettman in the NHL. And they were that this weekend, especially in this area. Top of the New York Post cover today. Rangers win. I think they called it the Miracle on Turf. Was, close to the Miracle on Ice, of course, in a football stadium. Miracle on Turf. Rangers win it. Top of the newspapers. All the headlines today are NHL Stadium Series. You want more of that. And I wish there was another game in 2 days from now, Rangers-Devils. I'd be down. Rangers play the Devils Thursday. Put that outside. And let me just tell you this. The Rangers play their playoff games outside. 5-0 all time for the New York Rangers outside. Of course, Lundqvist was 4-0. Igor now 1-0. Didn't play great, but got the win. But 5-0 all time. The win in 2012 against the Flyers, 2014 at Yankee Stadium, beating the Devils and Islanders. Of course, 2018 against Sabres, and then yesterday against the Islanders again. So 5-0 all time are the Rangers. So I say this. Let's put the Stanley Cup final at MetLife Stadium. How about it? I think that's a perfect idea. Rangers automatically win that series 4-0. Of course, I'm joking. You're not going to do that, but the Rangers win games outdoors. They find ways to come back outdoors. They did not play nearly their best hockey game yesterday, and they found a way to win. But a great weekend of hockey and something I would love to see more of. And, you look forward to next year whenever, those games are played and, whenever your favorite teams, and it even adds more to this. But when you heard that this was announced last year, when you heard about it coming to MetLife, the excitement was high. And I don't think any of us could have envisioned the excitement and the overall, expectations being exceeded by this much in this event. Like, I think we all knew, outdoor games, they're always a lot of fun, but to see a game like this, to see a classic like this on a national stage, outdoors, in front of 79,000 was phenomenal. Phenomenal. How can you not be romantic about hockey, as they always say? So, a lot of fun. Now, to the actual game with the Rangers and the Islanders, like I mentioned, the Rangers did not play a very good game for the first period specifically. I thought they played a lot better in the second period, especially Igor. He's allowed the most saves this year on the glove side, which has been a little bit of a problem, but made a couple really big glove saves. And I'll tell you this, if Igor did not lock in and play well in the second period, this easily could have been an 8-4 game. This easily could have been a game where Jonathan Quick comes in cold, super cold because of the weather. Igor gets pulled, Rangers get blown out, and we're talking about a completely different storyline today. Instead of Miracle on Turf, we're talking about Igor gets pulled in front of 79,000 and the Rangers get whooped by the Islanders or whatever. But that would have been the storyline. That would have been the headline. Igor, I thought, stepped up really good in the second period. You had the 2 goals, of course, from Trocheck, the one on the power play, and then, of course, the other one later on about just less than 2 minutes remaining in the second period to make it 4-3, build the momentum. And then, unfortunately, you had the unlucky goal in the third period for the Islanders from Romanov, where you have Brzezinski hit his stick, Lindgren gets hurt. According to reports, it was a laceration on his face. They said his eye was very swollen. He had stitches. Don't really know much. You'll probably know more today into tomorrow. He might miss a game or 2, but if it isn't anything with the eye, which hopefully it's not, you're probably going to see him out there with a fishbowl for, maybe a month or so until all that heals, which we've seen plenty of Rangers this year have to play with fishbowls for a couple games, extended period of time. Gaudreau, Vesey, Gustafsson, now Lindgren potentially. So there's been a couple of them this year. Some unlucky luck for the Rangers getting pucks and sticks to the face this season. And of course, for Lindgren, he kind of got hit. It was unlucky because then it opened up wide open. Romanov right in front of Igor, quick tap in. Brzezinski almost had it on a stick to clear the puck, deflected off Brzezinski's stick, perfect deflection right to Romanov and scores to make it 5-3. And in that moment, I thought, yeah, this game's over. It was such an unlucky goal. It felt like all the wind was taken out of their sails. It was just a minute 53 seconds into the third period, and you felt all the momentum that you built was all gone because Lindgren doesn't get hurt there. He's on Romanov. That's probably not a goal, most likely. Even if it was, then it would have been a whole lot tougher than being wide open in the front of the net. It was such an unfortunate goal, and you're saying to yourself, they came all this way. 2 goals in the second period by Vincent Trocheck, cuts the lead to 1. Igor plays better, and here it is. That's the way they're going to go. It was like a fluky type goal, just super unlucky. And then the Rangers come back. And the power play in this game was so huge. Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad with 2 massive power play goals. Of course, Vincent Trocheck had the power play goal in the second period. And you felt like going into this game, and I talked about this. I have a Talking Rangers podcast that I do, co-host the Talking Rangers podcast on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go check that out. We talked about it all week, or in our previous episode, about getting, and I think this has been a mindset among Rangers fans. One of the ways they had to win this game was the power play had to get going. Something had to give going into this game. The Islanders had the worst power play in the NHL, and really over the last 20 games plus, really over the last month, since the calendar year switched to 2024, the Rangers' power play has been one of the worst in the NHL. So it was one of the worst power plays in the NHL over the last month versus one of the worst penalty kills all season long. Something had to give. Luckily, it was the Rangers' power play finally coming through. They go 3 for 5 in this game. Kreider and Mika with 2 power play goals late. Mika, he's got to continue to shoot that. For a while now, the confidence has been a little bit low. Has not been shooting that one-timer. And even some of the shots he's taken, they've missed wide. They haven't been quite on net. They haven't been quite as accurate. Perfect accurate, top post, where the cookies are, and beat Sorokin. Just beat him. Just beat him. Quick shot. That one-timer by Mika is so dangerous. One of the more dangerous one-timers in the NHL. When it's on, we need to see more of that from Mika. And you hope that can be a huge confidence boost to tie the game, get it to 5-5, and Lavalette pulling the goalies was massive. Pulling Igor when there was a 4-on-3 to make it a 5-on-3, and then pulling him to make it a 6-on-4, so having 2 opportunities at the 2-man advantage. And a lot of credit, too, to the Rangers. They had consistent pressure. There was, I can only recall 1 shot on the empty net that the Islanders have, which I'll be honest, I thought it was going in, but it missed high and wide. There was only really 1 good opportunity that the Islanders had on net, on the open net. They didn't really have any good opportunities. The Rangers kept the pressure, really just weared the Islanders down, really worn them down, and got them tired, put pressure, consistent forecheck, score the 2 goals, big power play goals in a big spot, get it to 5-5. You go to overtime. Artemi Panarin is one of the best players in the National Hockey League this year. He's been a complete monster. The guy's a beast. Give him the heart. He's a monster. 74 points this season. That's 5th in the NHL. 32 goals. That's tied for 6th. He's top 15 as well in assists. Huge game for him. And I think, too, for Artemi Panarin is, for many moments, throughout his Ranger career, in some of the big spots, he hasn't quite been himself. And I will say this, outside of that Penguins Game 7 game winner, which you just heard those words come out of my mouth, and all those Rangers fans, I'm not discounting him for that. Game 7 winner in a playoff series to take down Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, although Sidney Crosby was actually got hurt in that series. But either way, to take down the Penguins and win that Game 7 in 2022, the year they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, that was a huge moment. But the rest of the playoffs, he didn't play very well. Last year, he didn't play very well in the playoffs. And it seems like throughout his time as the Rangers, in some points, in the big moments, he's come up very small. And he's been hard on himself. He's admitted to that. Yesterday, that wasn't the case. Again, in front of 79,000 people, big moment, big game, 5-5 overtime. 10 seconds in, Artemi Panarin forecheck, deflects the puck as they were trying to get out of the zone and advance onto the rush. The Islanders were. Panarin deflects it, gets it in, net dislodged. Of course, they had to go to the review. Good goal. Artemi Panarin's been a monster. And he's a great guy, likable guy. Talked about how emotional it was. And if Panarin continues this way and he plays like this in the playoffs, this Ranger team is going to be so tough. He's their best player. And when your best player goes silent, you're going to lose games. And that's what happened really over the last 2 years. Especially last season. He went completely silent. Even through those 2 games where they won against the Devils, Panarin didn't play very well. He just didn't. Especially the games that they were losing. But now, big spots, big moments this season. This carries into the playoffs and he plays like this. That's going to be huge. Big game for him. Of course, he had the 2 assists as well, so 3 total points for Panarin. And again, your total goal scorers were Gustafsson, Vincent Trocheck 2 times, Kreider, Mika, and then Breadman. Great game. By far not their closest to their best game. Although I thought that even though they were down 4-1 and it came back, I thought they played really well in the second period. The second period, I thought they played really well. Outside of the first period, I mean, if you remove the first period, the Rangers really dominated the Isles pretty much. I mean, you take away the first period, Rangers win this game 4-2. 3 of the Isles' 5 goals came in a span of about 3 minutes in the first period. Outside of that 3-minute span, the Rangers really shut them down. It was only 2 goals the rest of the game. So there was, I thought even though on the scoreboard, yes, they were down 4-1, I thought they played well in the second period, really well, especially Igor played very well in the second period. And I thought in the third period, that goal by Romanov is just unlucky. Lindgren's there if he doesn't get hurt. And getting off of Brodzinski's stick, it's unlucky. Now, I'm not making excuses for them, but it is. Romanov's not wide open in that situation. And the Rangers had no clue Lindgren was hurt. They didn't see him behind him in the corner hurt. So, outside of that, if Lindgren's not hurt, you can make the case the Rangers, this game wouldn't have gone to overtime. The Rangers would have won 6-4. So, you talk about having to play 60 minutes of hockey. The Rangers did not do that quite. I thought they probably played about 40 minutes and 10 seconds of good hockey. The first and second period, or second and third period, and of course the 10 seconds in overtime, where it was just Panarin taking on all the Isles. But yeah, that's just that was some of my impressions on it. And I thought early on both goalies were struggling a little bit to see with the sun and the outdoor environment in general. It's always tough, the whole depth perception, differing the puck from the stands, when it's in the air, all that stuff. And I thought the Rangers early on, I would like to see them shoot more. The Isles were just shooting at Igor. They weren't necessarily the greatest shots. Some of them were just wristers put up in the air. But that's what you want to do in those outdoor games. The goalies are struggling, especially that time of day where it's in between the sun going down and, cloud cover. You just want to put pucks on net. And the Islanders did a really good job of that early on. The Rangers did not. There was a portion of this game where the Islanders were out shooting the Rangers 40-20, or 30-15, 30-20 around that range. And the Rangers ended up only getting outshot 41-38, put a lot more pucks on net late, got a lot more aggressive, got a lot more pressure, forecheck, all that stuff. They really turned it around. But that's what you want to do in those outdoor games. Just get the pucks on that. I thought the Islanders did a much better job of that early in the game. But the Rangers were able to bounce back and, of course, do it when it matters most. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how many more times the Islanders can blow games like this. I mean, they have now 14 overtime losses this season, 4 in the shootout, 10 in overtime. That is ridiculous. They have left so many points and wins on the board this season. And it's going to be games like this where if the Islanders do miss the playoffs, that you're going to look back on and say, you win this game, they win this game. Many blowouts. If they would have won those games, they're a playoff team. But I mean, it's just so how they are so terrible at closing out games. Change the coach, change whatever you want. They can't close games. They just can't. They can't. And the Rangers, hey, they've come back a lot of games this year. This has been their bread and butter. The Islanders don't close games. The Rangers come back in games. And, that's something that the Rangers had the upper hand. And the no quit in New York slogan definitely fits here. But a memorable day at MetLife Stadium for the New York Rangers. And they now have 75 points, 7-game win streak, 36-16-3. They will now await tomorrow night. Will face the Dallas Stars. It'll be a very good test. Both teams 75 points. Now, the Stars will be on the second half of a back-to-back. Stars play today at 1 o'clock against the Bruins in Boston. Then they'll be at MSG tomorrow night. So the Rangers most likely won't get Ottinger, but they didn't get him last time, and they lost. So hopefully the Rangers can come out tomorrow. Big win, emotional win. Come out tomorrow, back focused, back on the grind, because these next 3 days are big for the Rangers. You've got the next 3 games, I should say. Stars Tuesday, Devils Thursday, Flyers Saturday. So 3 good games, 2 big ones in the Metropolitan, 2 games against, the Devils, of course, a rival, and the Flyers as well, another divisional opponent. Always like to beat them, even though the standings, the Rangers have a very comfortable lead. You always like to take care of business against teams in your own division. So we'll see how all that plays out. But on to the Devils game. Look, the Devils game, this was really Devils from the start. They had a lot of energy. The crowd was into it. You have the Nico Hischier breakaway to score the first goal, and into Foley a little bit later on, 13:30 into the first period, scores 2-0. You had the Owen Tippett goal to start the second to make it 2-1, make it interesting. But then you had 2 goals rattled off there from the Devils, really in a span of, it was about a minute and 12 seconds, I think it was really in the span of, I think it was 16:36 and 17:48 is what I have here in my notes, was the 2 goals from the Devils. So to make it 4-1, and then shortly thereafter, Tippett scored again on the power play to make it 4-2. It felt like the Flyers, you get off to an early start like that. You have a Nico Hischier breakaway 32 seconds into the game. Right when that goal went in, right when that happened, you knew the game was over. You knew it was over. Crowd erupted. Devils had all the momentum. Flyers began to press a little bit. You get the other goal by Toffoli. Even with the Tippett goals to cut the lead to 2-1 and cut it to 4-2, even with those goals and that little bit of momentum, you knew all along that the Devils were going to win this game. The Flyers, they were not ready from the jump. The Devils were ready from the jump. They played well. Nico Daws had a very good game, made a couple really good saves. You knew from the start they were going to take advantage. And as I mentioned, the nostalgia for Devils fans, it was very nostalgic for them. Going back to their old stomping grounds, the Meadowlands, a lot of memories there, a lot of Stanley Cups there, a lot of tailgating memories there. To go back there, play a team like the Flyers, a divisional opponent, big 2 points on the line, to take care of business outdoors. This was a little bit of a different feel for Devils fans. It was a little bit of a lot of memories being brought back to a place that brought a lot of really good memories, and this was a memory that Devils fans remember forever, was Saturday night's game. And it kind of was like some of the magic that was at the Meadowlands was still there and rubbed off on the Devils in this one as they pick up that big win, 6-3. But a big win, too, from them. That's just not, forget about the whole aspect of, the whole, the Stadium Series, Stadium Series escaped my mind. The Stadium Series weekend and all the emotions around that and returning to all that. This was a very big win for the Devils because you had 2 big points on the line. You look at the current standings, and throughout the season this year, the Devils have struggled at times to win consistently. It's been a much more bumpier road than last year. Last year, of course, was an exciting season, young team, made some noise, won a playoff series, a lot of great things. You go into this year, and people are thinking this is going to be one of the best teams in hockey, and that hasn't been the case. And, you have a team like the Flyers where they still have 2 games in hand. The Devils do. This was a potential 4-point swing for the Devils, where you win this game. Same thing for the Flyers. A lot on the line here. Devils are now only 5 points back of the Flyers, and they've got 2 games in hand. This is a game that could go a very long way. Devils are now only 2 games back of the Red Wings for that final wild card spot. So a big win there for the Devils. And then, 2, as much as the Devils hate the Rangers, if you're a Devils fan in this game, you had to be rooting for the Rangers because the Islanders lose. So they're still 2 points back of you. They would have won. You'd be tied. So anytime the Islanders lose, it helps the Devils' chances. So all in all, a very good weekend actually for the Devils, considering they won and then they got some help too from the Rangers, which I know sounds weird. But the Islanders losing helps them because they stay behind them in the standings. And I do think at the end of all this, depending on what they do at the deadline, or maybe they catch fire here in Nico Daws because he's played very well, I do think at the end of all this, the Devils will get into the playoffs. Who they play first round, we'll see. But I do think they will get into the postseason. And I think they could, look, they get into the postseason, they're getting good goalie play. They've got what it takes. You saw in this game. They can beat anybody. They're still a very solid team. They're having a rough year, but you get to the playoffs, they've got speed. Speed wins. Some physicality as well. Their biggest thing is their goaltending. They can get the goaltending right and stay healthy. Of course, Hughes missed a chunk of time. They've been very banged up this year. A lot of guys, key players, missing a lot of time. They can get healthy and get the goal situation figured out. And again, maybe Nico Dawes is their guy. Maybe they found something in him, but we'll see. But they can get right. They can be dangerous. They can be a sneaky team heading into the playoffs. So big win for them as well. Now, on a more, I guess, less positive note, all four of the hockey teams, or three of the hockey teams in the New York, New Jersey area, are playing meaningful games right now. As for the basketball, you only got one of them, and that is, of course, the New York Knicks. We got some breaking news today from the Brooklyn Nets. Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the Brooklyn Nets have fired Jacque Vaughn after 2 seasons. They will now look for another head coach. They fired him Monday morning, so they waited for the All-Star festivities to be done, and then they fired him today. So you have that happening. We hear reports now that the Nets are going to wait to hire an interim later on in the week after the All-Star break. So that looks like it's going to take place. But, look, the Nets are a dumpster fire. This team's got so many issues. It felt like there was smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. That's a good way of, I think, putting this whole situation, describing this whole situation with Jacque Vaughn and the Brooklyn Nets. You know, this team going into the All-Star break lost by 50 against the Boston Celtics. That was their last game, losing by 50 to the Boston Celtics. They're 11th in the Eastern Conference. They're outside of the play-in tournament. They're 21-33. They're getting worse. You know, this was a season where you wanted to see improvement. You wanted to see a lot of minutes from the young guys. You wanted to see guys like Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, all these guys continue to get opportunities, continue to get minutes, continue to get reps, go out there and continue to play well, improve. You know, maybe this team could have been play-in team. Maybe they squeak in as, I don't know, an 8 seed, a 7 seed, a little bit higher in the play-in. But you're thinking, all right, stay around 500. That's about all you're going to get. Get to the play-in, but see improvement. See improvement from the young guys. Play the young guys. And hopefully they're winning with the young guys and improving, and you're seeing positive things. And that has not happened at all. You know, this Nets team's been a disaster. You have the long losing streak. They've found ways. You know, this is the best way I think you can describe teams. And we say this all the times. Whether it's baseball, basketball, hockey, football, whatever it is, good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. The Nets are in that category of being a terrible team. They are a bad team. There's no other way to put it. I know when you look at the roster, and they're poorly coached, and that's why, of course, Jacque Vaughn's out. But I know when you look at the roster and you say to yourself, okay, you know, they're a bad team, but they've got Mikal Bridges. They've got Cam Thomas. They've got some pieces. They've got some young guys. Nick Claxton. You know, they've got guys that are young, developing, showing some positive things, right? Great, but they don't have a coach. And that's the biggest issue. And the Nets this year are a bad team. They found ways to win, found ways to lose in multiple ways. The amount of blown games they've had this year, the amount of games that they have not been able to close out, the amount of games late where Jacque Vaughn had questionable plays, questionable lineups, questionable rotations was alarming. Very alarming. Was eye-popping for the wrong reasons. So they found ways to lose that way, and they've also found ways to lose like they did on Wednesday where they get blown out by 50 on the second half of a back-to-back by the Boston Celtics, 136-86. So they found ways to lose by getting blown out. They've also found ways to lose in closed games. The rotations have been questionable. You hear what Mikal Bridges said after the game on Wednesday, where there was a lack of effort, lack of continuity, really kind of exposing the organization, exposing the issues, and you knew that was a comment that gets a coach fired. A star player making a comment like that gets a coach fired. That sends a message to the front office that a change needs to be made, especially when you hear there's a lack of effort, lack of continuity. All those things go back directly to the head coach. Lack of preparation. And that ultimately is why they fired him. You know, you hear reports that they lost belief in him. You know, this team has gone on many long losing streaks. They're 12 games below 500. They've had losses like when you lose by 50, you're going to have some real serious head-scratching looks at the head coach. You are. A lot of guys are going to be looking at Jacque Vaughn like he had 3 heads, I'm sure. And when you lose by 50 and you've lost all these close games and you're 12 games under 500 and you're not getting better, you're only getting worse, there's going to be looks. There's going to be questions about your future. So he's out. Who fills in? That'll be something you know more in the offseason. The interim coach will be announced here soon. But, I think a lot of Nets fans are a little surprised that this went the way it went with Jacque Vaughn. They gave him a multi-year contract extension last year. And I'll be honest, I am surprised that the Nets are this bad this year. I am. I thought going into this year, this team was not going to win an NBA Finals. This team is not going to probably not going to win a playoff series. I thought they could have came out of the play-in and, maybe won a game in a playoff series or 2 or just about that. But I didn't expect them to be this bad. I don't think many people did. This was the guy that last season came into a very difficult situation, 7 games into the season, was asked to take over as a head coach for a team that had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, 2 guys that wanted out. He was able to really make chicken salad out of chicken poop. I guess that's how the saying goes. He really was. You get the trade deadline stuff. You get a whole new roster of players. He was able to get them to the playoffs, was able to win games. You saw some development. He won Eastern Conference Coach of the Month in December. He actually got some coaching votes for Coach of the Year because not many guys could keep the locker room together like he was able to do, keep the team playing competitive with all the things happening outside of them. He was able to do that last year. Coming to this year was a disaster. And look, I guess it can't come by too much of a surprise because you look at his time in Orlando, he had a .269 winning percentage, went 58 and 158. This season, 21 and 33. In his career with the Nets, including the 10 games that he coached in the bubble where he went 7 and 3, Jacque Vaughn went in 139 games coached, went 71, 68, 511 winning percentage. But this year is what matters most. This year was awful. Players lost belief. Players lost trust in him. They turned the back on him. His voice was not heard anymore in the locker room. Let's be honest here. Sean Marks should probably be fired as well. Joe Tsai needs to sell the team. There's so many issues with this organization, so many structural issues with this organization, and the fallout from the big 3 is still happening. The trickle-down effect from the big 3 like this is still happening. So, this team's got a lot of work to do. I think you got to blow it up. I think Sean Marks has got to be out as well at the end of the year. I think you've got to blow it up, restart, bring in somebody here that knows basketball, basketball people making basketball decisions. Joe Tsai, keep your hands off of everything. Don't have any impact. Lay the foundation. Go through a rebuild, reset, retool. This team needs a lot more. I know some people say, oh, could the Nets be in the market for a star next year? No, they can't go star chasing. They need to reset, retool, rebuild, blow everything up, restart. Another fallout from another failed big 3. Jacque Vaughn's out. In Brooklyn, a disastrous season and such a joke of an organization that can't do anything right. Anything right. Gets something wrong again in the head coach. Terrible. So, for the games today, you got a lot of hockey going on today, and that's really about it. NBA still in the All-Star break. We'll be back on Thursday. Baseball here in a couple days. Thursday will be the first spring training game. You saw Juan Soto showing up, Aaron Judge. All the guys are now in Tampa reporting to spring training. So looking forward to that. Should be a great time. Should be a great season. I'm pumped up. I am very optimistic this year about the New York Yankees. I have not been optimistic about the team the last 2 seasons, I'll be honest. I did not think they were going anywhere last year. I definitely didn't think they were going anywhere the year before that. This year, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling optimistic, especially if we can go out and get Blake Snell. This is the first time in a long time, I'd say probably first time in 3 years, that you've entered a season with the New York Yankees having legitimate hopes, having a legitimate mindset that this team can get to the World Series. And that's not, we were not buying into players anymore. No, we're not buying into nothing against Harrison Bader, but last year we're like, oh, Harrison Bader, Oswaldo Cabrera, Oswald Peraza, all these guys, if they can do this, they can do that. No, we've got legitimate players. We got Juan Soto. We already have Aaron Judge. You get Stanton fully ready to go. You hopefully get a healthy Anthony Rizzo. You get Blake Snell, that rotation's set. So, still some questions, no doubt. But if everything works out, this Yankee team can be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm saying that right now on February 19th. Maybe in 2 months from now, April 19th might come around. This team's struggling, and I'll be fired up. But right now, I think we got a pretty good chance of witnessing some exciting baseball for the Yankees. For the Mets, while I understand what David Stearns is doing, and I do think Mets fans need to trust him, don't think it's going to be a very good year for the Mets. Although I do think they could be an underrated, fun team. And I think the Mets could be a team that wins some games, wins some exciting games, have some stretches. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I could see this Mets team being oddly fun, like oddly likable, oddly fun team with its younger, some underrated pieces coming together, playing well. You see some good things out of Vientos. I think this could be an oddly fun year for the Mets in a weird way. And we'll get more into that as the season gets closer, but they're not going to be a World Series team. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but I think they could be a team that, upsets some teams, goes on some stretches. You see some good things out of guys you want to see. You get Edwin Diaz back. You can kind of be like a fun, frisky team. Not the most eye-popping name. Sometimes those teams could turn out to be interesting. They could also be the most boring team in baseball. I could see that. It's one or the other with the Mets. They could be the most boring team in baseball that has a terrible season, wins 70 games, and is a complete disaster. Or low 70 games. And I think they could probably hit potentially high 70s, maybe low 80s, maybe like an 82, 85, around 500, if that's the best case scenario. But, I don't know. Look, it's the fallout from trying to buy your way to a championship. Well, this time last year, we had a whole lot of different expectations for the Mets. I'll tell you that for sure. So that'll do it for an episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. We'll have a lot more content coming your way. Been posting a lot of shorts as well, so definitely go check that out. Please like and subscribe, as always, so you don't miss out on any other videos. Had an episode out yesterday with Paul Boy Green Eston Jr. Was great talking with him. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely go check that out, talking all things New York Jets. Well, more content coming your way. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.